once. Hello, everybody. I am HP Holo / Edie Sky. I write stuff, and I also interview other people who write stuff. And today we've got a tiny little panel almost on this interview show. We were supposed to have 3 people, but Bill Fawcett got sick and couldn't be here because his voice stopped working. So today we have Melissa Olthoff and Casey Moores, and I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves, and then we will get to talking about the book of the moment, which is Forlorn Hope, Blood and Armor #4. So let's see. Casey, I had you on here recently, so we'll start with Melissa.
Hey guys, I'm Melissa Olthoff. I write sci-fi and fantasy, and I sneak in romance wherever I can because I write what I love to read. Most of my stuff is with Chris Kennedy Publishing, and I was super excited to get to write with Casey because he's my Obi-Wan. So,
all right, Casey, your turn.
And I'm Casey Moores. I write military sci-fi and science fiction, fantasy, some post-apocalyptic, kind of all over the place. Mostly with the Four Horsemen universe. Obviously, I wrote Bill Fawcett and I wrote books 2 and 3 together of the Blood and Armor series, and then Melissa and I just wrote book 4 together. So yeah, you can look me up on. Well, I'm sure we'll go through the credentials at some point. The where to find these. Sorry, my brain's catching up.
Yes, and all of the. By the way, I've linked to your websites and everything in the show notes on Facebook and YouTube, and there's a little post on Twitter. So if any of you guys want to go read their stuff, do that, and you can find it in those places. So today's novel is unique because first of all, it's 4th in a series. But Melissa, you came on. This is your first book in this series. And so there's a lot to talk about in terms of how the collaborations worked and whatnot. But first things first, Forlorn Hope is not actually out yet. It comes out next Friday?
August 2nd.
August 2nd. And so can't pre-order it right now because I don't think the pre-order's up. But I do have a link to the series in the show notes again. So just go read those books and then get Forlorn Hope when it comes out. But first off, let's start out with doing a short recap of what the series is about, and then we'll talk about book 4 specifically. So, itty bitty, sum up the first 3 books.
Casey, you're up.
All right. Bill Fawcett, sadly you can make it today, was he wrote Never Again, the first novel in which the Kurds have a republic. There are people that have sort of been split between several different countries for a long time. This is a near future where they have a republic of their own. All of the countries around them are trying to destroy them all the time. And a billionaire benefactor brings along a canceled DARPA project of combat suits that they use to help defend themselves. It's a sort of a technological massive step forward in terms of military technology. In book 2, the Iranians, having, spoiler alert, failed an invasion, then decided they're going to nuke the Kurds instead, and the Kurds have to send 3 deep strikes to defend from that. Book 3, no further, the Syrians are now getting involved. You see them a little bit in the beginning of Never Again, but they're coming back with a vengeance with a lot of international support and large number of mercenary units that have been equipped with Russian combat suits and a bunch of other mercenary units that have been equipped with combat suits from around the world that are actually mostly real technology that's in development right now. It seems that there's 3 branches of that attack, and no further deals largely with 2 of those branches, 2 of those columns, Syrian columns marching forward, and it seems that the Syrian invasion has been defeated, but for the beginning of early into Forlorn Hope, we find that it is continuing on for a reason.
Wahaha.
Yes. All right, now Melissa.
That was quick enough. Sorry.
Oh yeah, that's that. You did it perfectly. All right, Melissa, it's your turn. Tell us what Forlorn Hope is about.
So Forlorn Hope kind of follows Nisty's story. And we've met her before in book 2, a little bit in book 1. Book 3 mostly revolved around some other characters that Casey and Bill have come up with. But this one's centered around Nisty Khan. She's kind of, that up-and-coming officer. And she's really good at what she does, usually. So this one centers on basically her figuring out more of the command structure and figuring out how to recover when you make a mistake, and maybe a little bit of romance because I was told to, not because I snuck it in. I was under orders. I swear I was going to behave. But it follows her her journey and how she handles her side of the invasion, and pretty much wraps up that whole invasion series and how they saved the day.
Now, is there going to be another one after this one, or is this the last in the series?
Well, this is book 4 is the last for a little bit. This is the completion of that the first part of the series, I guess, where it's all entirely defensive in around the borders of the Kurdish Republic itself. The series will continue. Bill Fawcett I sort of misstated this or misspoke this a little while the last time I was with you. He has a very very well developed long-term plan for how this is going to continue. It's just that the major, I guess, turning points are spelled out along the way, and it's those points that we needed to develop a lot better for the novels themselves. But how this is actually going to develop is very well spelled out. Now I'm repeating myself. Sorry.
You could potentially have a ton of these novels.
Well, to sum up, Bill Fawcett, because he's an evil genius, he has a plan for the longer continuation of the series.
And I think we've actually said this on another podcast. Essentially, this is going to be a recreation of the Mongol Empire in the modern day. As their survival expands and they start eating up some of the countries around them to stop them from being the aggressors, which then makes them a problem for the next country, the next larger country that comes along. And then because that country views them as the threat, they make themselves a threat, and then the Kurdish Republic has to deal with them as well. So it's going to sort of spiral, and their control is going to expand.
And they just don't get a break.
Yeah. Now, stepping back to Nisty, just to sort of spell out the character a little bit more, like we said, Bill, we saw her extensively in Never Again. Bill Fawcett, at that time, had created her as a corporal. She was one of the original 3 the initial 3 cadre in the GOG's combat suits. And by the end of that novel, we see her as a sergeant and then getting promoted very quickly to lieutenant. She's a captain by the time No Fail runs around. As a result of No Fail, she's already promoted straight to major. She is on a skyrocketing career. So that's like the premise of who she is. Mm-hmm. She started out, early on in the ranks, but she has proven herself time and again until a Forlorn Hope comes around.
Mm-hmm.
No, she was the main character. Like I admittedly am way behind on my reading, so I've only read like the first part of book 2. She was in book 2, right? She was the one that was following. Yeah. Okay, so I know her.
She's one of the major she's the major POV for one of those 3 strikes.
Yes. All right. And I really enjoyed reading her stuff. So I'm excited to read more when I finally my reading list is so big.
That's all of us. It's all of us.
Oh man. All right. So Melissa, you came into this series kind of late. And so I want to know how what brought you into writing the series at book 4?
I love the story. I love it so much. So LibertyCon, not this last year, but the year before.
Of course it's LibertyCon. It's always LibertyCon.
Always LibertyCon.
Right? LibertyCon is amazing. If you guys don't know what it is like the coolest mid-sized con I've ever been. It's my personal favorite. It's in Chattanooga every June, and it sells out every year. It's just amazing. It's like Dragon Con might be like a party with 80,000 of your friends, but LibertyCon is like more family. It's very
It's
cool.
where most of the best ideas get spawned.
I always describe LibertyCon as like a family reunion, but you like the people there.
That's a great way to put it, because it's true.
Two LibertyCons ago is how I got into Blood and Armor. So, 3 now. Sorry.
So Casey was writing Blood and Armor, and I'm like one of his main readers. So he sends me his stuff. I read it. So I was already familiar with the series. I was, basically alpha reading it for him. And Bill Fawcett started up his newbie, author mentoring sessions again. And I was fortunate enough to be on the list and, signed up for it. Cause I'm like, well, he's been around a long time. I want to see what he's got to say because he knows his stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was really lucky in that his next appointment I don't know what happened, but he didn't show up. So I got back-to-back appointments with Bill Fawcett. We were just talking military stuff because, like Casey, I was prior Air Force and we were just having a good conversation. And I mentioned, he brought up the Blood and Armor series and Casey, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm reading it for him and providing feedback. And he's like, would you be interested? He's like, we need to do a Nisty centric novel, and I need a female author to help bring her character a little bit further along. And I'm like, co-writing with Casey, that sounds terrible. No, I don't want to. Yes, that would be amazing. So I'm
Little
like,
did
no.
you know. No.
All right. You're such a liar. We had so much fun. But yeah, I got out of that meeting and I went to listen to Marisa Wolf do her reading. And I get out of that and I open the door and then there's Bill Fawcett, Casey Moores, and Chris Kennedy all standing there going, yes. It was very cool.
Awesome. Is this a Chris Kennedy publishing book?
It is.
I speak to so many publishers and pay attention to so many books. I completely lose track of who publishes what. Oh my gosh. Oh, we got Howard in the comments. Hey, Howard, who says it's very interesting to hear how these collaborations get started. Collaborations in themselves are really interesting. It's a really interesting topic because it seems like no two collaborators or no two groups do it the same way. There's so many things that go into play between different writing styles, different approaches to planning, things like that. Did you guys find that your planning styles meshed very well, or do you approach writing from different directions?
So, did you ever see Ocean's 11?
I think so.
There was a scene where Brad Pitt's character and George Clooney's character are in a bar. And George is just talking, and Brad Pitt's just sitting there like this, not saying a word. And that right there is something that Casey and I have been doing for years. He will call me and he'll talk through like whatever he's doing. I just have to make mouth noises of,
It's like, I got a problem with this scene, and I'm wondering, where it's going to go. I kind of have no idea. I was like, maybe I could go this way, or you think I should go this way? Okay, I think I'm going to go that way. All right, thanks.
So really, like, we've been doing that together for years, and what's really funny is like I'd gotten so used to like I just listen and not say anything. There have been times where he's like, no, I don't need Brad. I need Melissa. I need you to actually talk now. I'm like, oh, Brad, I was supposed to be listening.
I need a real answer here. I'm sorry. I actually am blanking on this one.
So I think we really just sprang off of that very much where he would talk, I would talk, we would bounce ideas off each other. And quite frankly, this is one of the easiest co-writing experiences I've ever had because we've been doing this almost since the beginning, just not with both of us writing the same project. So yeah, I really had fun.
Cool. In terms of the actual writing itself, like did you trade off chapters, or did one of you write the first draft and then the other go add stuff? How did that aspect of it work?
Kind of went back and forth. Largely, Melissa was taking the actual Nisty scenes, and as it developed, it was originally largely going to be all Nisty scenes, and so we were like, well, we should definitely then split them up. But then I brought in my bad guy from No Further, and he had a few more scenes. Then we brought in my medic from No Fail, and he had a few more scenes. And so I largely was writing those pieces. But I also wrote some of the Nisty scenes, and I almost feel like it flip-flopped somewhere around the end, because I was writing some of the staff weenie scenes, and so yeah, there's some time when Nisty gets relegated back to headquarters in a staff position, and it's soul-sucking, and I think I did some of those. So we had a plan, and then we completely deviated from it.
Well, the great thing though was like we would talk through stuff like when we would get to a certain point where crap we've written everything we discussed. We know where we're going to end up, but we need to like get on the phone and talk through some stuff. And he'd be like, hey, do you think you could take this scene while I work on this scene? So even though we weren't sticking with like the same POVs throughout, like I think I wrote like two Eric, minor villain bad guy scenes. We were mostly just writing out like whole scenes and then going back through each other's and smoothing it out. And Casey would fill in all of my brackets that said "cool gun goes here."
Put in weapon, do research.
I'm not the only author that does that.
It doesn't mean. I mean, to be clear, we agreed to do this from the beginning. It wasn't like I was smacking it with extra work. It was.
I was the one that had spent 2 years researching Syrian military equipment and Iranian military equipment and Russians, whatever. Yeah.
You're the subject matter expert there.
Right?
Yeah, I had those tabs open on my. I had those tabs open on my window for 2 years straight.
Jacob and I do the same thing whenever we collaborate together because I'm writing Lit RPG now, and I hate stats so much. Like I cannot even articulate how much I hate stats. But my readers were asking for stats. very luckily, I have a husband who makes spreadsheets for fun. And so whenever I'm writing my lit RPG stuff, I just go, stats go here. And fill them in. But yes, I love having collaborators like that. One of my favorite things about collaborations is that the work, it gets divided, but you also bring two different skill sets to it. And it's when those two different skill sets begin to complement each other and mesh, that's when the collaboration gets really interesting and really fun. We have a good question in the comments from Howard, who asks, did Bill ever get upset on where you took his character? I guess I'm asking how the co-authors come together on an agreed upon arc.
Largely, I'm going to say no. In terms of the characters, at the very least, it's more just a matter of making sure that the story went where his plan needed it to go. So, and every now and then, whenever we started to wander off a little bit, he'd be like, "No, this needs to shift back over this way," and be like, "Yeah, okay." So I don't think there was any problems with that, unless I'm forgetting something, Melissa. I don't know.
No. So Kate, again, a lot of things happen in a bar, right? So we were at Superstars out in Colorado before we started writing this, and we did a lot of our plotting in the bar. And then we had a Zoom meeting with Bill, and we went through with him like, here's our plan, here's what we see, and then he added his inputs like, you need to tweak the ending a little bit, or maybe massage this over here, so to speak.
Develop this part a little bit better.
Yeah, like add some more stuff here, and we write in, like Google Docs. So Bill was able to follow along as we were writing it. So it wasn't like we handed him a complete draft and then had to rewrite chunks. He was reading as we went and could like nudge us in the right direction as we went along.
That's helpful. Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
You actually stole my next question. Now I have to think
Great question. Sorry.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. And before I continue, guys, I forgot to say this at the beginning, which is stupid because I do this every single show. We're giving away a signed copy of the book. So if you want to enter to win the signed copy, I've got a link in the comments. There's also a link in the show notes. Fill out the little form. We'll choose a random winner. It will be sent after DragonCon. Because
so
you guys are all going to be there, and then you'll sign it there. But yeah, if you want to read this book, which you absolutely should, fill out the form. So, all right, let's see. Next question.
Quick question.
Right.
Quick thing. We were talking about the collaboration. One other way we picked the scenes when we'd be bouncing back and forth at each other. I think it usually boiled down to whoever between the two of us, we got the best sense, had a better feel for that scene. Whoever was envisioning it better was sort of like, if one of us was like, I don't know, like, where are they? And the other one's like, oh, well, they're here, and this is what they're doing. Be like, well, why don't you write that? Because you're seeing in your head right now. So I think that's how we usually resolve those sorts of things.
Yeah, and some of it, like, and this applies to, like, any co-writing, I think. It's like, if you or your partner really wants to write that particular scene, dude, all you, go for it. Because sometimes certain scenes are more important to a particular author than others. And it's like, go forth, conquer. I can't wait to read it.
Yeah. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the power armor, because I freaking love power armor.
Always.
And we
got a good new one in this one.
Yes.
Yes,
we got all kinds.
In your last interview, Casey, so we don't necessarily need to retread everything that was said before. But you say we do have a new power armor in this one. So let's hear about it.
It is the Magog, the Major Armament General Ordnance Garment. Major Armament General Ordnance Garment. So, Gog. So now we had the Gogs, and now we have the Magogs. If you want to look those up on the internets, see what you find. So, the Major Armament Gog, the Magog, is essentially the ones that are carrying around the heavy weapons that I'm pretty sure, at least I, reading Never Again as a fan, was like, it'd be so cool if they were carrying one of these. And now we have Gogs that are carrying one of those. We've got the Gogs with the javelins. We've got the Gogs with the... they're not carrying Stingers. They're actually carrying Russian Strela missiles, but anti-air missiles. I think one of them's got a 20-millimeter autocannon. One of them's got a medium machine gun. I'm forgetting. A mortar. We got a mortar Magog. I might be missing one.
They're bigger. They're
bigger,
awesome.
heavier, a little bit bulkier. They got a little bit, and they also have. They basically have like a carrier Gog that follows them around, like a loader Gog that follows them around. So it's sort of like they can operate on their own, but they got a little battle buddy. Yeah. So.
The battle buddies.
Like, I'm picturing this as like a Warhammer 40K mini, and you've got like the big one, the bulky one, the big old gun,
Yes.
and a little
I
one
just
carrying
picture
behind him
it
with like
kind
a big old sack of
toddling along behind it. I know it doesn't
ammunition.
toddle, but that's not.
Yeah, and then we're still talking about the small ones
so
are 7
big,
feet
but next
tall.
to the big dogs, they live small.
So
All right,
yeah.
so in terms of riding the power armor, like you've said before that this technology already exists in some form. Maybe not as developed as it is
Most
in
of
this
the
setting.
pieces.
But
Yeah.
how do you balance, like where do you just how do you balance writing this kind of technology? How do you decide like how ridiculous you want to make it in this setting? I mean, ridiculous is the wrong word because this is more of a realistic setting.
Yeah.
But how do you decide how far to push this technology in this kind of book?
I think you half backpedaling from ridiculous is actually kind of the answer, in that it's a near future military science fiction. We're trying to make as realistic and plausible as possible.
Mhm.
And so that's really where the line is. We have to, we couldn't just write Iron Man.
Right.
You know, we can't just have nanotechnology creating those big armor things. We don't have Gundam suits. We have to have things that are, most of it is off-the-shelf technologies. The places that we stretched are the battery power of the GOG suits and the railguns. Those are the places that Bill Fawcett specifically was like, I'm just going to take a leap on these two. But it's also at least 10 years in the future or more.
Mhm.
It's set in years 9 and then 10 of the Kurdish Republic, which obviously doesn't exist yet. So, you know, far enough in the future. But that to sum up what you're asking, we're trying to base it in reality and just make it like the next major step forward in battlefield military technology.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually really the fun part of it, though, was limiting it, like
Always.
not letting it be like.
Richie
Yeah.
says, "Love me some power armor." You were speaking to the right audience.
Yeah.
Were there any things while you were writing where you wrote them down and said, "Oh, okay, this gun is too ridiculous. Like, I know we're trying to push the limits here, but did you ever have to walk it back because it was too ridiculous? Or did you just kind of naturally feel it out?"
So, can I answer?
Go.
It looks like there's a great story here. I can just see it on your face.
Me.
Me! I got something. So, Casey and Bill did a very good job of setting up a standardized, like, this is what they have, right? So, like, they have the rifles, they have the grenades, and it was very like standard issue, right? And I think mostly because of being obsessed with Gundam Wing and all sorts of fun powered armor shows, I'm like, but why don't they have any kind of stabby stab? Where is the blade? Where is the cool anything? So I gave them some tactically acquired off the battlefield type things that you might find from a crashed helicopter, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And then
Nothing.
I'd like to say I added in what I hope is a somewhat hilarious reason as to why they didn't have them in the first place.
Yes.
You have to read Forlorn Hope to know what I'm talking about.
I'm absolutely I'm gonna pick up all these books and just plow through them in one weekend. Like, I'm just gonna write it on my schedule because
we've gotten a lot of feedback. We've gotten a lot of feedback that several people have done that. One of those things, like, I just took 2 years writing these books, and they're like, I rated them all in weekend.
Yeah.
Where's the next one? Oh,
that's one of the most complicated things as an author, because it's like
Thank you. And
yeah, because you spend all this time on the book, and on one end, it's a really huge compliment to hear readers say that, but on the other end, you're like, that was 2 years of work.
Oh my god, I just got that.
I have complicated feelings about it. I ultimately love it though. Like, it's so fun.
So cool.
All right, we got Howard is coming up with the good questions this time around.
I like that question.
And so I'm going to turn this into 2 questions. So Howard asks, or says, both Casey and Melissa have a military background. His question is, can non-military types write great military sci-fi? I want to precede that, though, by asking, first off, what branches of the military were you guys in, or are you guys in? And what kind of influence did that have on the book? Because obviously it's military sci-fi. There's going to be some influence. But were there any particular experiences you had that directly contributed to the structuring of the book or the story in the book?
well, we're both Air Force. I was a pilot. Melissa, you were air traffic control. Yeah.
Close enough.
Did you? Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead,
Airfield.
Melissa. What did you do? Sorry.
So I was medically disqualified from UPC, which is actually how I met Casey. We were stationed at Moody together. And then I was very fortunate to get placed in airfield operations, which meant air traffic control, airfield management, and, the airfield. So,
I'm going to say, as it affected, well, and so that's kind of the thing. Like, yes, we were both military, but neither of us was frontline grunt or anything like that.
Mhm.
I got shot at a few times, and that kind of made me mad. But beyond that, it's not like, wasn't really actively involved in combat ever. So, and I mean, the bottom line, we get this question a lot, specifically really around LibertyCon. This is one of those common questions as to non-military, non-veterans writing military science fiction. Some of the better military science fiction writers were never in the military. David Weber. Yeah.
Mhm.
Is the first one that pops to mind, and I know there's a lot more examples of that. So a lot of the people that ride in the Four Horsemen were not veteran, were not military, and they, the creator of the universe, the Four Horsemen universe, Mark Wandry, not a veteran, but created a wonderful military science fiction universe. And
I think ultimately it comes down to research. I mean, let's be real. With enough research, you can fake your knowledge of anything. And the thing is, one thing, I'm not military at all. Like I'm such a weenie. I would be a threat to national security in the military. Like you don't want me there. But I hang out around a lot of military people, and there's a distinct vibe, like a distinct way that people who have military experience interact with the world and view hierarchies and whatnot. And if you write military sci-fi or write military stories and try to fake it, there's so many little nuances that civilians don't know about, that military readers with military experience or writers with military experience will absolutely pick up on. And that's one of the things that fascinates me about military sci-fi, because it provides this window into this world that I know nothing about. And that's pretty cool. But
I think, obviously neither of us have ever had the chance to play around with powered armor. The best equivalent I saw was, I think it was episode 2 of Fallout on when Maximus has the powered armor. I'm like, oh my God, it's a dog, right? But you're right. Like having that military customs and courtesies engraved in how we interact and how we write our characters definitely helps. But David Weber is one where he talked with people who served. Marisa Wolf, another amazing example of somebody that kicks all the butt at writing military or mercenary style sci-fi. And she never served, but she pays attention. She talks and hangs out with those of us that did. So yes, you can absolutely write mil sci-fi if you haven't served. You just need to, do the research, ask people at cons, hang out.
The biggest example I can think of too is, I want to say Tom Clancy, because it seems like I seem to remember there being a story about him once where he has no military, or had no military experience. I think he's passed by now. But did his research so well that I think at some point the government contacted him and was like, you wrote this in this book. How did you know this? And he didn't know this government secret, but he knew the workings of certain aspects so well that he could draw logical conclusions. And his conclusions.
I've heard that story too.
Yeah, and that just comes down to research and knowing the logic of what you're researching and writing about. So it's there's a lot of power in good research.
Underscoring all of this, I mean, Bill Fawcett created this universe. He wrote Never Again, and he was also a huge military historian. He has a whole series of, how to lose this, or mistakes made in these wars, or history, and all these things. So he had done all that. He's spent a lot of time doing all that research before he created all of this. And actually, that's a lot of the things that I drew from started developing this series. When I was first pinged as somebody that could potentially help him develop this, I started doing my research and reading those histories of his, and I started trying to incorporate some of those mistakes that people made, those massive blunders that people make on the battlefield, that he had researched and put into his histories.
Bill knows his stuff. The people that really know military history, and I will admit flat out, I'm not one of them, or at least not to the depth of knowledge that Bill has, or Casey, or even my husband Dan has. my list of research topics.
Everything I know about military history, I've learned from just listening to nerds at LibertyCon.
Yes.
It's not my area of expertise, but I know lots of people who have that as their area of expertise.
Right?
I was Air Force. I don't know guns. Most of the things I know about guns, I know from LibertyCon.
Yeah, if I
the
have
fact that I
found
qualified every year and shot expert every year, but that was one, handful of weapons.
This podcast is just going to become one big advertisement for LibertyCon.
Right? I mean, it's so great.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite things about LibertyCon, and really about our immediate con community in general. If you need to know something about a thing, chances are there is someone at that con who knows about the thing and will talk your ear off about it.
Absolutely.
Like I'm the kind of person where my expertise is in book marketing and it's
really cool.
Yeah, there are people who definitely want to ask about it, but it's not like military sci-fi or history expertise.
Book marketing is the stuff I need to know. Sorry.
One of my favorite things to do with these cons is just, I like to go sit in the lobby and see who sits next to me and just starts talking, because I've learned so many cool things just from listening to people. And it's just, and random people too. Like the bar at LibertyCon is spectacular for just learning new things and getting crazy drunk as well. But learning things. And and Richie's in the comments. He says, well, I'm going to download book 1. Just looked it up and this is my cup of tea. So thanks, Richie. You're going to love it. I mean, I haven't read book 1 yet, but I know what you like to read. So,
yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. All right, let's see here. Got a few more comments. I know Howard comments that Drake was military, but his stuff was also based on a lot of military history. David Drake. And Richie says,
now, I think that as an example, David Drake is specifically an example of somebody that brought a little bit more of the, I think he brought a little bit more of the hardcore feeling into it, more than was being done at that time. He was a little bit more visceral, a little bit more brutal from his experiences. So that's a great example of somebody who had those experiences and was able to incorporate very, very intensely into his writing.
Yeah, am I remembering it right that he actually wrote some of his things as a way to cope?
Yep.
With I want to say, is Redliners one of his? Is that the one I'm thinking of?
Yeah.
There's so much like I have a 4 foot by 4 foot coffee table, and it is loaded up stacks high with books that I've gotten from cons and haven't read yet. And every single time I go to a con, I get new books, and I haven't seen the surface of this coffee table since I started writing. Like, it is a massive. But yeah, I had some David Drake on there, and then it's gotten moved around and buried. Yeah, Robert over here says that volunteer at LibertyCon for the con suite bar and you will never be lonely. There is truth. All right. Okay. So we have Melissa here who writes some romance. I want to talk about the romance in this book. Now, was there any romance in the previous 3, or was it pretty much just straight military action plot?
I don't know, Casey. Was there a little bit of something in book 3 that I absolutely squealed over like a little girl?
I'm kind of subtle about it. Sorry, it was subtle. It's there.
It was very subtle.
Yeah,
it was very subtle and
there's
very
also
well
hints, maybe some foreshadowing of something to come, but not much. So, in Never Again, No Fail, No Further, not really.
Not really. It's very subtle, and you can read it as nothing at all. But it was very well done. This one is not subtle. It's not subtle at all.
No.
How not subtle, dare I ask?
It's not Edie Sky.
It is not Edie Sky. Yeah.
I was subtle. It's fine. It's fine. It was.
It still fits within the confines of a military science fiction novel that follows the other 3.
But it's
we haven't completely changed the template here.
It's more if you put men and women together when they're serving and they're in high stakes life and death situations, certain relationships are going to naturally develop. And whether or not those relationships are deeply like true love, romantic, or just stress relief. Yeah. It's very realistic in real military is how that works out. So while I would say it's very central to the plot and it's very much drives the plot, it still fits with the rest of the series.
Cool. Nice.
I regret nothing, by the way.
I think.
I have to ask, is that an Eldritch Horror in the background?
Huh? A
I
what?
see like the Eldritch Horror. I thought like I see like the tails winging.
That is my cat. Also, I'm gonna bring him in so he can say hi.
So basically an Eldritch Horror, as far as I'm concerned. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, hello, Dazzle.
Oh God.
He's trying his present thing. Hey Dazzle, you came in here, now you have to say hi to everybody.
Oh, orange boy.
Baby's so
I saw the
wiggly.
tail wandering up in the background. It was sort of like
there you
intercursive.
Hi, Dazzle.
Dazzle is not as camera friendly as Nova was. And he also hold it. I gotta let him out of the room. Oh, he figured it out. Doors bewilder him. Like, he's very orange in that he has one brain cell most of the time, and he knows how to close doors, but he hasn't quite figured out that he can put his face in the little space and nudge it open again. And so doors are his thing. He's very offended by being on the wrong side of doors. I made the mistake of, well, not really a mistake because I like having him out there. We've been letting him outside with me when I write now. I've got a little harness on him and a little leash that I keep him on. And it's fun when he's outside, but now that he's had a taste of outside, he gets really offended by the fact that he is not outside at all times. And so if I go toward any door that leads outside, he thinks he's going outside and he'll run and scream at it and claw at it. And it's just this whole thing. Oh my gosh, it's chaos. And I brought it on myself, but yeah. So anyway, I think he's off causing mischief elsewhere now.
I've got two puppies, and one of them is just like that. Doors frighten and confound him, and he'll sort of like paw at them, even if there's that much open, and he couldn't easily just sort of like, even if he could fit through it, and he's just not entirely sure, he'll just sit there and paw at it a little bit, passive aggressively. And then we also have another one. There's a little puppy, and she's Scrappy Doo, and she's the one that can like pull on the handle and. I got through.
I can't tell if I like the smart ones more or less because they're smart, which is useful, but also the trouble they can get into is frightening. I guess I'm kind of blessed that Dazzle is a complete dumbass because he is a complete dumbass, but he's lovable, so he has that going in his favor. All right, let's see here. I have more questions. I think. Hold on. I've been moving papers around. All right. Okay. So I want to know, since this is a book about power armor, I want to know, what are your favorite power armor pieces of fiction or media, or because I know we've talked about Fallout, which, oh my gosh, I love the power armor in Fallout. It's like every time I see it on the screen, I just want to get inside it and just stomp around. Like, I don't have a practical need for power armor in my life, but I would just like wear it to the grocery store just to be all looking cool. I mean, it could be useful for lifting grocery bags. Not gonna lie to you. You could carry so many at once. But so, favorite power armor fiction.
I have always been a Gundam girl, so I love the giant stompy robots and the fact that they just look so cool. But like, as far as like powered armor on a smaller, like, person size scale, I always thought Starship Troopers, the book, not the movie, the way that he described the powered armor was so cool. It blew my like 11-year-old brain. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I think it was the first time I'd ever read about powered armor, so that was a good one.
So I grew up watching Robotech, and then I became a BattleTech nerd, and it didn't bother me at all that they straight up copied some of the original BattleTech, or the BattleTech copied some of the original Robotech designs. I didn't care. And I love BattleTech, but those are big, giant armored mecha, not really powered armor or combat suits. But then they developed the Elementals, which were cool, and, it's this huge guy, but they're in these suits, and they can take on mechs by themselves. Well, not by themselves, but with their, teams and all that stuff. So Elementals from BattleTech, love those. The Caspers, the Four Horsemen, I got to make that big plug for the Four Horsemen. The combat armored suit personal, those things are awesome. Especially as they develop in some of the other different versions that people have come up with for the Caspers over the years. So those are the two major ones. I do agree that the Starship Trooper combat suit, I feel like that sort of sets the stage. That's sort of like, I don't know, that was sort of like the Sean Connery as James Bond of combat suits or power armor.
That's a great comparison.
It just sort of created the idea. Well, I'm not sure if he created the idea, but that was the quintessential version. I don't know. There's all sorts of other, thoughts along those lines, but yeah, we go about. I got geeky after that forever. I was also a Warhammer 40K guy, so I won't even go there.
Power armor.
Power armor is so cool.
Howard says you can always use some power armor.
Always.
I could have use for it.
Like,
More
I say I
power.
don't have immediate practical uses, but if a suit of power armor like fell into my backyard, I would find uses for it. Like even boring uses. And we got Robert says Lensman, the OG power armor. I have actually not seen Lensman. I need to add that to my list. There's so many things I haven't watched. There's so much media and so little time.
Oh. So live action, not animated, the best power armor I think I've seen was on The Expanse. The Martian's power armor was really cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of things I haven't watched yet.
Oh,
I'm so behind you guys.
Cool. It's a fun show. I actually still haven't watched the last 2 episodes.
I've watched the last 2 seasons.
That's fine.
I'm proud of myself for actually catching up on Bridgerton in the same year that the most recent season released. It's an accomplishment for me. I'm like a month or 2 late, but still, that's as close as I've ever been.
I just finished that one. I was very proud of myself for finishing all 3 seasons.
All right. Let's see here. We've actually made it to the end of my list of questions about the book itself. So before we continue on to some other stuff, is there anything else you'd like to say about the book? Any cool minor characters you enjoyed writing, or any interesting challenges that it presented? Or
well, bad guy from No Further, Barack, he makes an appearance, and he has a lot of more story to tell, and a kind of a different storyline that was happening in parallel with No Further that wasn't shown then. Kazi the medic, he comes back around from No Fail, and you'll see him fairly extensively. Are there any other major characters? Well, we're going to see a lot of generals that we've talked about. Maybe mentioned in No Further. We saw them a little bit in No Further, but essentially, when Nisty Khan goes back to headquarters, she's going to see where all the generals and colonels have run off to.
So for the most part, for me, most of these characters were already developed, right? So I was getting to essentially play with somebody else's toys. But Casey and I developed Araz Philippi together. So that was a fun exercise in figuring out what we wanted his character to be, and that is Nisty's love interest. But the character that I came up with on my own that I really enjoyed writing was, I figured Nisty needed a good, solid lieutenant. Like, she needed somebody that she could rely on. And I am totally blanking on his name because I'm a terrible author.
Baran? Yeah, Baran.
So, and this was another thing that I left in brackets a lot of times, like, was just proper names.
Need Kurdish name.
Yeah, it would be like Kurdish name.
That was another tab that I had open on my computer for 2 years.
He did. He saved my bacon. So
Bill had a list of them, and he gave them to me, and then I promptly had to come up with more of my own, and it was.
Yeah, that actually leads me
lots of names in a totally different country.
That actually leads me to another question. Like, how much of this series, like, we know it was well planned. We know that Bill has a plan for it. How much how much was left up to you? Like, how much did you have to invent on your own that wasn't in Bill's outlining?
Quite a bit, to be honest. He had like the major plot points, and then he gave us the freedom to explore. And I mean, even in some cases, I'm pretty sure we know that he had something in mind. But if we wandered and it still fit the major plot point, he'd let us develop in that direction. So, I mean, this entire book, actually, other than the fact it was a Nisty book, No Further was going to conclude when we originally mapped it out together, when Bill and I originally mapped it out together, but when we then added a Nisty book and decided how it was going to intertwine with this, suddenly this entire part, the entire part of Forlorn Hope wasn't actually going to be written until we were developing a Nisty book. So, that major plot point split into 2 different novels.
So it's essentially, he gave us a roadmap. And we got to help develop. But as far as like how we got to those different points, he let us play, and it was really cool.
That's that is how I prefer to write novels. That's how I have the most fun, because Jacob does a lot of my outlining, and we do really well. We discuss how things are going to happen, but then he'll do really skeletal outlines and specifically leaves room for me to fill in the blanks as I please, and it makes for so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for someone who, I used to be a discovery writer until I realized that made my novels take too long to write, and so having those really skeletal outlines was a nice little compromise. All right. We got about 15 minutes left. So everyone in the comments, if you have any questions for my authors, feel free to pop them in the comments. But until some more pop up, I am going to ask a few of my other questions. So are there any other novels in particular that influenced this one? Or another way of saying that is, what are some read-alikes? Like, if you like this, you'll like this novel. Because we've mentioned Starship Troopers. We've mentioned...
I used to read a lot of Webb Griffin. W.E.B. Griffin. I don't know why I say Webb. That's just how I see it whenever I see the books. And it follows that same very military-centric, I guess, sense or not even sure the word I'm looking for, but it follows that style very heavily. Harold Coyle wrote very similarly, and so those were all military fiction, not so much science fiction, but like I said, the science fiction part of this is kind of a very small boost. It is centric. That is the central idea of one of the main central ideas of the series. But in terms of the military fiction part of it, Griffin, Coyle, it's been compared to Tom Clancy in terms of the military thriller aspect of it. Melissa, any other thoughts on that? Sorry.
Oh, so for me, this was me like stretching my author wings a little bit, because military thrillers was a new genre for me. So part of my research was literally just reading the first 3 books again as a reader, instead of like as a looking for typos and stuff. So honestly, like, I'm just going to go with what Casey said, because most of my experience as a reader has been more like Four Horsemen universe, like Richard Fox's Ember Wars, which I love that series. In fact, I was really excited when I realized he's written more books in it that I have not read yet. So
that's such a great feeling when that happens.
Like, oh man, I haven't looked back in a couple of years, and I went on Amazon. I'm like, whoo, he wrote more.
I have this absurd habit when I read of, if I really, really like a series, I will read every book in it but the last book, because I don't want the series to end. And sometimes it happens accidentally, like I'm busy and I just read other stuff and forget. But I've noticed over the years, there are lots of series that I love enough that I haven't read the last book. So I love it when other books come out, because then it gives me a replacement last book.
Oh, good. I can be like that with TV shows sometime. I let them stack up, and so that yeah.
Well, and I feel like it was also a lot easier before ebooks to keep track of what series, like you had a whole list that you would take to Barnes and Noble or what have you, and look to see if the next one was out.
And they'd always have like books 2 and 3, but not 4, and then and then they'd have 5 and 6. Yeah.
The struggle
is real.
Oh, ebooks have made my book pop
back in the Stone Ages.
I'm so prone to just seeing that something is 99 cents and downloading it. Like, I've got so many books that I've solely downloaded just because they're 99 cents and have a neat cover. And I tell myself, you know what? One day I'm going to have so much time to read these things, and I'll catch up on them then. And then I laugh.
It's a lie.
Still looking for that pocket dimension. Yep.
I had no idea how much I would be trading my reading time for writing time when I started this. I'm like, oh, well, now it takes me like 2 weeks to read a single book, whereas it used to be like 2 days.
Same. That's one of the hardest things about being a writer, to be honest. And it can be frustrating sometimes too, because I'm the sort where I find that my writing is influenced by what I'm consuming, and I have to engage with other creative stuff, or my writing just isn't as good. But then you have to find the time to actually do it. And I found that I have to pick a book and schedule time in my workday to read it as if it is part of the workday to actually get it done.
Fair.
Because if I tell myself, oh, it's just going to be fun reading, then I push it off. And so yeah, that's been my hack to trick myself and to get more reading done. I have to trick myself into thinking that it's work, which my brain is.
I mean,
well,
Sometimes it is research reading, and
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I try and
Well,
do my fun reading when I eat. That's how I manage to trick my brain. Like, I'm taking an official break, therefore I can read for fun.
Yep.
It works.
All right, let's see here. I'm looking through my questions. We've answered a lot of my other questions already. Let's see. I've got like a whole page here of backup questions. So you write on Google Docs, you said. Are there any other technologies you use to assist your planning or your writing? Or is it pretty much just, we chat in Google Docs or we write in Google Docs and leave each other comments? Do you dictate at all? Is there any other stuff like that? Oh, Casey's got something for us.
My brain is
I have
not
all these notebooks and that's like the ones that are in my backpack right now. I can't actually lift I'm not gonna have a whole box of them over here that are old. That's my technology.
Like a good notebook though. Like I carry around tons too. Like it's a tactile thing for me.
Right? Yeah.
I use all sorts of technologies when I write too, but there's nothing like just putting pen to paper, and I love it. All right. Yeah. Well, we are beginning
so
to
not really. I don't use any outlining software or anything, if that's what you're asking.
Oh, yeah. I always find it interesting to see how different authors interact with their writing, because I know so many authors who they dictate their novels as they're doing their morning walk. And I admire people who can do that, because I can't. I'm very much the squirrel brain type, where I'm looking around at everything, and if I dictated, it would be a disaster while I walked in the morning. But a lot of authors that I know manage to get a ridiculous number of words done in a day from that, and it's really cool to me. And there's so many different types of technology you can use to assist your writing and make it more efficient these days. And but I still like pen and paper. Like I type now so that I can write faster, but I hate it because I enjoy pen and paper more. But that could actually be a whole panel in and of itself. But anyway, like I said, we're getting to the top of the hour, so we're going to start wrapping things up. Where are you guys going to be? You doing any signings, any cons? Where are you going to be in the next few months?
So I will be at Dragon Con, fingers crossed, because my husband's schedule is always up in the air, but so far so good. And I will be at Deep South Con in Helen, Georgia in October, during Oktoberfest. I'm not sad about this at all.
That's going to be a fun weekend.
I hate you.
You're ahead of me.
Very proud of you. Sorry. That's awesome.
How about you, Casey?
I'm going to be at Moriarty Minicon in Moriarty, New Mexico, the town just on the other side of the Sandias from Albuquerque, on the 3rd of August. That'll be a one day. Got high hopes. I don't know, but we'll see how that goes. A few weeks later, I'm going to be at Bubonicon here in Albuquerque. Our primary science fiction fantasy centric convention. George R.R. Martin, S.M. Sterling are always there. And I got half the table. I'm sharing it with A.J. Alexander this year, somewhat randomly assigned, but seems awesome. I guess I'll meet her there, and it sounds like we're going to have a great time. So I'll be at Bonicon that weekend, and then the next weekend we'll be at Dragon Con. We will have a table at the Gather selling the Blood and Armor series.
Nice.
And I got some panels scheduled. After that, it's going to slow down a little bit until January. In general, over the course of the year, I'm trying to expand my Albuquerque conventions more. So it's Moriarty Minicon, Bubonicon. I do Albuquerque Comic Con every year. I think next year I'll try to do Duke City Comic Con. Beyond that, my out-of-state conventions are really just Liberty Con and Dragon Con. I want to get back to Fantasy. They're taking next year off. Maybe when they bring that back, I'll be ready to start getting back out there.
I always think of Fantasy as like a diet Liberty Con because it's smaller, but it's a lot of the same people come, and so you have a similar vibe, and it's smaller than Liberty Con right now, but there's not an attendance limit, and so it has the potential to get a lot bigger, and so that's those are two that I always try to make it to, and actually won't be at Liberty Con next year because we have an actual family reunion the same weekend, and so but I love my family, fortunately, so it's going to be fun either way. But yeah, your con seasons are still much busier than mine. I have exactly one for the rest of the year, and I'm going to be a guest of honor at Pecan in North Texas. So first time guest of honor. I have no idea. So fun. But yeah, they've been really cool. And Jacob is another guest of honor, and there are a few others as well. But it's going to be a fun time. It's another itty bitty con. But I like itty bitty cons. You get to hang out with people more there. Yeah. So Forlorn Hope comes out next Friday, August 2nd. I don't know how dates work. I just kind of
don't do time math for reasons.
Yeah.
No.
So
yeah.
So anyway,
that was
guys,
stipulation in Forlorn Hope was that I did the time math.
Except for at one point he made me do the time math. I'm like, this should show how much I love you because I did time math for you.
Time math is hard. Well, I mean, all math is hard for me. Like literally, the only math.
Sorry.
The only math I can do, you guys, is book marketing math. Like it's really stupid. Like I'm an intelligent person, but tips throw me off. But at the same time, I can look at Facebook ad stats and not even look at the ad itself and tell you whether it's a good ad or not. Like it's stupid. But
it's awesome.
My career. But yeah. So do you guys have any other books coming out around this time that you want to pitch? Because we know Forlorn Hope. Everybody in the comments, mark your calendars, go buy it on August 2nd. But I know you guys have other stuff coming out. So let's hear about it.
So we actually both of us just had a release yesterday in Casey Ezel's Ashes of Entesia.
Yes.
Space opera series. It's the first anthology, so you could read it as a standalone, or even better, you could read the first 3 books that Casey wrote and then brought in Chris Kennedy to co-write with her on books 2 and 3. Casey's story in that one is one of, I think, the best he's ever written. It was fantastic. Outside of that, I have my first urban.
Yours was pretty awesome.
I've got an urban fantasy romance coming out in September with the Hit World Valkyries with Marisa Wolf.
Oh, nice!
That series.
And that just released too, like last week, didn't it? Yes.
So
I'm gonna have Marisa on the show next week for that.
Or I will be in the comments, girl.
Yes.
Because that book is so good, and mine will come out next, and I'm really proud of that one too. So. Enemies to lovers,
yes. Sold already.
Which is definitely not something that happens in Forlorn Hope either. Sorry.
No.
Enemies. Exactly.
Not enemies.
You guys are making me read this book faster.
Oh no, I'm so sad.
Anything coming out for you other than you got the one anthology?
We'll also have Bureau 42 a few weeks further back. The Four Horsemen Peacemaker anthology just came back. So this is actually kind of a big month for me. I had the Bureau. No Further came, No Fail, No Further. We released all these rapid fire. Never Again, No Fail, No Further. And then I had a short story in Bureau 42. Got a short story in Remnants of Empire. We got Forlorn Hope. Forlorn Hope is kind of like the culminating point for the year, I think, for me in terms of publications. Nice. I have a whole lot of other short stories that are sort of floating out there in the wind on some sort of timelines that they will find themselves at some point. But I want to say I've got a half a dozen short stories floating out there in the ether that will eventually come out to the audiences, but to the readers. But in the meantime, I'm starting a collaboration series with Jamie Ibsen. We wrote Unshackled together, and we wrote in the background of that the fictional Buff Orpington movie series.
Oh my gosh, yes!
For a whole lot of fun. So and now we're trying to develop that as an actual series. Mm-hmm. It's actually going to be, I think, emotionally on that same level as Unshackled in terms of hilarity versus seriousness. So,
I'm sold on that
see
one
how
too.
See how that goes for us.
You're absolutely
that's the major thing I'm working on right now. I'm also potentially going to be a part of a major project, but I'll speak more about that when that's a real thing.
The secret ones.
We love secrets.
So, yeah. And then, so the rest of the year, I don't have any actual, depending on how quickly Jamie and I knock our novels out, not sure if I'm going to be releasing any more novels this year. We'll see. Mm-hmm. I'm doing my best.
You're having a full year. You deserve to take a full break.
You've had a few come out already, man.
You gotta sleep.
Yeah.
Eventually. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming on the show with me. This has been a super fun time. And everybody in the comments, thanks for hanging out too. I have put the series link and the contest link in the comments. So before you head off, go ahead and make sure you click those and go sign up for stuff and buy all the books and buy all of the books that they've ever written because they are super great. But again, thank you guys, and we will have you on again for some other book.
Yes.
Yes.
Anytime. Thank you for having us.